Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes, and welcome back to the YoVideogames podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Andrew.
And once again, thank you to all our generous patrons who've kept us going for 310 episodes.
Jesus Christ. We're getting old. Yeah, if you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogames podcast. Dude of the week is HyperViper89.
Thank you, Hyper Viper.
Also, I think we're hitting like mostly old school dudes, because I think HyperViper has been with us for ever. I think
I was
pretty
going to
much
say
since
ever.
the beginning.
Yeah.
We're basically going through now, granted, there's not like a fancy way of me picking this. I literally scroll through all the dudes and whatever my mouse lands on, assuming that it isn't someone that we've done in the last like 52 episodes. That's pretty much how I pick. If there's like a better way to pick a random dude, all right, tweet it to me. I'll fucking do it. But
Hyper Viper, who's based off of Cable from the X-Men.
Is that where that's from?
Yeah. That's his move in the Marvel Capcom 2. Hyper Viper Beam. Hyper Viper Beam.
That's cool. I don't know why you would think I would. I'm not a Cable.
Hyper Viper. Just because that's like you're in the arcade and you hear Marvel 2, you like, well, especially in the early years, like when everyone uses. I mean, everyone still uses Cable. Cable's still like up there, like in the top, but like you still like you just hear Hyper Viper Beam. Hyper Viper Beam.
When was the last time? Oh well, no, you went to Galloping Ghost. I was thinking, when was the last time I was in like a proper arcade?
Shit, I knew you were gonna go there.
Too long. Too long.
January 2020 was the last time I was in an arcade.
Like a
Galloping
proper
Ghost.
ass. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. We're old.
Online Persona was there. Johnny J was there. I don't know if.
Oh shit.
So,
because it's in Chicago. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, for the Nier concert.
I've never been to Galloping Ghost, and it might be the main reason I go to Chicago.
It's definitely
My mom grew up in Chicago.
You know, it's funny because it's like it's not this really big tall building, you know, like you would think, like
Strip mall.
Yeah, well, it's like
Yeah.
it's in like a very Americana looking, you know, something out of a fucking Michael Bay film where he like shows you the whole, you know, red, white, and blue
Kid running
American Pie,
in overalls.
you know, kid running overall, the
Wheat.
fucking like truck driving by, like
Doesn't matter what year it is. It's always a 1940s Ford or Chevy.
Yeah.
And then a kid running in overalls barefoot with like a toy plane of like a P-51.
Yeah, and I remember you saying that, like how he's very good at selling the American dream or whatever. And I thought about him like Transformers 4. There was like when Mark Wahlberg was brought in, and it's like he's driving this, you know, pickup truck, and he lives on this Americana house with a big wraparound porch.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
you know, flag flying. I'm like, oh my god, he just fucking sells bullshit.
Can't help himself.
Like, but it works.
Well, part of me is he's a commercial director, and it's why he's really good at like really poppy, like insane shots, you know, or like, you know, like the looping around and like you go under the girl's legs and it comes out. It's very music video. He's great at that shit.
Yeah.
Really love his Bay like wraparound shot that he does.
Yeah.
And then Americana, you know,
Shit just
could
got
be a
really
Coke ad, could be a Michael
for
Bay
him,
film.
it's both.
Or yeah, different kind of Coke. Speaking of ads, we have a sponsor.
We do.
And
And as I was pointing out with Hyper Viper, like Cable has got a problem where he has a growth. In his case, it's a biometallic growth where his body's becoming robotic.
so our sponsor's not going to help him.
It won't help him, but it will help you because if you're a man's man, you've definitely got an encroaching growth problem, one that will quickly overtake your whole body if not, you know, proper care is not taking care of it.
That's right. We're talking about a taint beard.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about up top. Everybody gets that, but did you forget
So if you
about
don't
the
want to
taint?
look like a bushy Cable down below, you should check out Manscaped and all their fine products that they sell. Obviously, their big one is the Lawnmower 4.0, which is, you know, the actual device used
To trim your balls.
to trim your nuts. It's pretty cool. It comes with a flashlight,
Waterproof.
waterproof. Oh, it's actually in off mode, by the way. So as I showed you, the lights, does that?
Yeah,
That
you were
means
telling me
it's in
that's
travel
good.
mode. So you click 3 times, 1, 2, 3, and then it turns on. Ba-dong.
Did
But
not
if you
know
don't
that.
want it to turn on inside the bag, you go 1, 2, 3, and then it turns into travel mode. Boom! So it'll save you batteries and it'll save you balls on the road.
And now you don't have to read the instructions.
And I don't that too. And of
We
course,
did that for you.
one of our kind of personal favorites too is the Crop Reviver.
Crop
and
Reviver is the
And
spray.
the Crop Reviver is the spray, correct? And then the Crop Preserver is the deodorant. It's a lotion deodorant for your balls after a shower. Keeps them smelling fresh and juicy.
The reason I'm the biggest fan of it now, though, is I've been trying to run a little more. We started doing video episodes, and I was like, God damn. So I'm running more. And
I should be running more.
here, well, you can start with me.
Absolutely.
It's anti-chafing, and I get a little bit of thigh rub. I'm not,
Bro.
not gonna lie to you.
My God, dude. Like a whole day at a convention, man. You get like...
The older I get, the more
I
I
used
get
to
thigh
bring
rub.
cortisones just for like, your thighs and shit. Like
Oh
at the
my
end of
God.
a long... That something like those Mad Max costumes and shit. Just like...
I'm gonna say this. This is way more soothing than Icy Hot. Icy Hot feels pretty good on like a really sore sprain or something like that, but this doesn't smell like absolute asshole like Icy Hot does. This smells wonderful. You might trick somebody into wandering into your woods, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. It's got a nice, natural, woody... in a good woody sense.
I've been telling
Not a
personal
musk.
anecdotes every single time. Do you have a personal anecdote about how much you have enjoyed the crop preserver?
My problem is that, as a content creator, I'm mostly just kind of sitting, at my workstation.
And you just keep smelling your hands after you put it on. You're just kind of like, yeah, that's kind of nice.
Hmm.
My balls are like that? I would smell my balls.
I would smell my balls. Hell, if I was a dog, I'd lick them.
Oh, well...
I mean, a dog probably would anyways, but,
my dog fucking loves the smell of that. I can't put it on at home anymore.
your dog will stick for your nuts.
Not just sniffing. He was getting priestly,
It's enticing.
getting real in there. I felt like an altar boy again.
See, he's just jealous that you can maintain your balls and he can't because you got him fucking snipped and,
And now he has just like a hanging little sad sack.
Now he has a little tiny hanging sad sack.
I'm a monster.
But you don't
I
want
know.
your sad sack to be stinky. So avoid a sad, stinky sack. Get some Manscaped. Go to manscaped.com. Enter code YoVG, all caps. Save 20% off and get free shipping worldwide.
And again, right in time for the holidays.
It's a perfect stocking stuffer.
Hilarious to give a father-in-law.
Perfect.
But okay, so speaking of cable, you were bringing up something sort of about, well, specifically about Avengers and
Yeah. It's
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay, so it's a personal beef. I'm kind of I've noticed. And
We had this beef. Most of our subjects come from us, what we were talking about.
right before we hit record.
Yeah, like what we're arguing about before we hit record. And this came up kind of funny. And we're going to call it Butterface games. Games that just aren't great looking, but you know what? Everything else about it is just fucking...
It's a personal thing of mine that's actually been bugging me for a while, where people are so visually attuned or so visually
spoiled,
driven that I think it gets in the way, or worse, like it. Okay, it kind of goes both ways. Like recently, yesterday, I put out a tweet, and I was actually shocked at the kickback I've got to it. Not related to video games, but we'll get there, trust me. Where I said, because they had their Disney Plus day on this week.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And, they showed some concept art for the Obi-Wan series. And I was like, am I the only one who thinks it's fucking stupid to have Obi-Wan and Darth Vader meet up again and fight? And then doubly stupid if they're going to do it on Mustafar.
Again?
And people are like, no, shut up. It's awesome. And I'm just like, I'm like, I don't know why Star Wars fans complain so much about the fucking sequel trilogy then, if all they care about is just seeing fucking lightsabers go, oh, here's, and then I thought about it, I'm like, okay, well, I know why they hate the sequel trilogy, because it's not my favorite character that I, slept with the toy, in my bed in my Star Wars undies.
Jar Jar Binks.
It's not them doing cool shit. Like I want to see my cool character do cool shit, and that's kind of what it boils down to. Is people, I know what that is. They know what Obi-Wan is, and they know what Vader is, and they want to see them twirl fucking lightsabers, and that's all they give a shit about. Now I can understand with the sequel trilogy, you have new characters.
Yeah.
and they're not twirling shit as much as they probably would like, and they're killing off the old characters, which I am 100% in the camp of The Last Jedi was kind of a shit film. Like, I think it's a shit film. It's shit written. It's got shit ideas.
I just don't think it's as bad as people think it is.
It's poorly done. It's well acted, and it's well shot. But
I think it's the most fine in terms of, like, it's the only one of the three films that tried to do anything.
Right.
It made
but
attempts
failed
to
miserably.
But I'm not sure if that was. I don't think it had any chance at all to do what they set out. Everyone involved was like, oh yeah, do whatever you want, like really, really go for it.
Yeah.
And then someone was like, yeah, I'm gonna go for Ryan Johnson was like, yeah, I'm gonna go for it. And then everyone's like, no, draw that back. No, you can't change that. Oh no, you can't do that. And so by the time it got finished, I think all the ideas that it started with were just murdered.
Here's the thing, though. Regardless of what actually happened, it tried to be different, and people didn't like that. Did people, like, when Luke was like, what do you want me to go out there and just with a lightsaber just take on the whole, like, First Order? And everyone was like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I think that's really what people fucking wanted. They just wanted to see their superhero go pew pew pop crash. They're like the South Park version of Mel Gibson.
I think that's
I'm sorry, not Mel Gibson, Michael Bay. Where they're like, he's like brah crash brah, and he's like, Michael Bay. That's not a script. Those are just special effects. I'm sorry, I don't know the difference. And I'm like, this is. I mean, okay, I'm dunking a little bit on Star Wars fans here, but it's like, you all seem super okay with this really demystifying idea of fucking Anakin or Darth Vader and Obi-Wan going back to the same place they fought in Episode 3 to have a rematch duel. Like it's fucking SummerSlam or some shit.
And who's going to have the high ground this time?
Yeah. Oh my God. There'll be a fucking line about high ground. But I'm like, okay, but everyone's like, oh, this idea is great. Fuck you. I love this shit. I'm like, okay, all right. Fuck it.
Yeah, fuck me. Whatever.
Fuck me. And that's, you know what? That's fine. But like, to me, I looked at my, all right, there's the original trilogy, and that's fucking it now.
Well,
but like,
a problem I have when we talk about the original trilogy versus anything else is Jedi went from warrior priests that like had some special powers to, in the prequels, they basically became fucking superheroes. And then from then on, they wanted superhero shit. So when you got to the sequels, they expected Luke to be, I mean, and they did this in the books, Luke could move with an insane super speed and could like, everything slowed down time, and he can project himself across the universe and fucking, it's all very cool, but like in the original trilogy, Luke had a hard time lifting a single ship out of a swamp.
Yeah.
Even in the prequels, a rocket-sized pillar gave some trouble to Yoda. Yeah. And I feel like if it was done now in the sequels, where it was like Yoda would have just like snapped his fingers and shit would have flown all over the place. And
yeah, like at the end of The Last Jedi, Rey moves like a fucking landslide of boulders, and it's like.
It is evolved to the point where it's now superheroes. Star Wars became Marvel films.
Right.
That's what it became. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. And I don't shit on anyone who likes that. In the books, I liked it. I think I just didn't realize that it was becoming Superman. Like, there's nowhere to go from there.
For me, a lot of it is just sort of like everyone's latching on to this fucking line from Return of the Jedi where Luke is like trying to like talk Vader, over to the good side before they go up to the Death Star, and he's just like, Obi-Wan thought as you once did, and everyone's like, that's what this series is going to explain that. I'm like, fuck, why? Why does it need to be explained? And why do we need to base a whole thing out of a line from Return of the Jedi that was fucked up by Lucas in Episode 3 by having their final confrontation be like super aggressive? Like Obi-Wan didn't try to talk him out of shit. He was just it was a fight.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I'm here to kick your ass.
Okay, so because Lucas ignored this line or made this line make less sense in Return of the Jedi, now you're trying to re-retcon the retcon. It's like, fuck, dude. Like,
content mining.
That's a story debate. I think the greater thing I was getting at though is that like it just seems like you don't really care what the context is so long as you get to see cool lightsaber. Actually, the only context you want is you want to know what the character is. You want to have a childhood attachment to the character, and you want to see them do cool fucking shit with their lightsaber. And to me, I'm just like, okay, well,
I'm not against it.
And that's a good point. And some
You're just
people,
not gonna
some people are
remember
like, look, it's fucking done. It's Fast and the Furious now. Like, just
Yeah.
turn your brain off. Quit expecting some fucking like high art from this.
They're family.
And that's fair. That is fair. You really shouldn't be expecting high art from
The
Star
original
Wars.
trilogy wasn't high art either. It's
Right.
just that
Right. That's the thing.
it was fresh.
Right. So that's a fair assessment. Just okay. Quit trying to make it like more than it is.
Okay.
Which would have gone well for the sequel trilogy, I feel too.
Yeah. Look, whenever I get into weird arguments about the sequel trilogy, I always begin by saying, like, I had fun. But are we having a discussion about, like, this is another thing where I remember there was a YouTube comment where we had done a movie review where I had explained, I think it was for Guardians of the Galaxy 2 or something like that, where I had connected some dots in the movie. And someone was like, I don't like that bald guy. He overthinks it. And I was like, well, fucking film major, man. I can't help it. This is what I do. Yeah, and I think James Gunn ended up saying the same thing.
Okay.
Like, vindication, YouTube comment.
So yeah, it's fair in a sense when like it's Star Wars, quit overthinking it, and that is true. But I think
fun first.
Applying this also to video games can be a problem where sometimes people just want the visuals to be fucking good and they don't, and like they overlook other things. Now there's two huge examples of this with Marvel. Specifically, funny enough, they're both Marvel games and they're both recent. We'll go with the most recent first, and that was Guardians of the Galaxy, as you brought up already.
Which looks a little jank.
It had a game come out in October, and the word of mouth has been fantastic.
Yeah.
People who've played the game say it's fucking great. Single-player game. There isn't microtransactions.
Which is amazing.
There's none of, like, it's very well written. Apparently, I've heard a lot about how well written it is, how well done the character dialogue and interactions are. And it kind of flew under a lot of people's radar because it looked like fucking last year's Avengers game, which from the start people were not really on board with because it looked like stunt doubles. And then it turned out to be a microtransaction hell. And then they fucking lied about the fact that there wasn't going to be any boosting items, and they were boosting items. And then they took the boosting items out, and they got called out on that lie so much. So it's like, it's just this big fucking mess that everyone fucking is not happy with. And then they showed Avengers at E3 this year, or I'm sorry, Guardians of the Galaxy at E3 this year, and everyone kind of wrote it off because they didn't look like stunt doubles. They look really different. Like Peter Quill looks really different. He looks like a fucking like Viking Renaissance fair dude wearing a Peter Quill costume.
My problem is
Rocket Raccoon's even got like a weird Viking braided beard.
Why did people think that it was going to look like the movie stars?
You know what? I'm gonna go against you on that. Why shouldn't they? Because here's one thing that they've noticed about Avengers. You know why Avengers isn't being shut down completely?
Why?
Because they introduced Marvel Cinematic Universe costumes, and apparently the sales were so good for that they've been keeping it afloat and helping it like keep the green light for more DLC down the road. And it's like, that's what people fucking want.
Okay, but if Captain America looked like Chris Evans and Chris Evans wasn't the voice,
right?
People would be pissed. So okay, now they're bringing Chris.
I don't think they'd be as pissed. And I think that's the crux of this whole argument and episode is that people are visually drawn. Like, if you get a sound-alike of Chris Evans, people will be more forgiving if it looked like him, but it was a sound-alike.
Okay. Part of me is just like, I didn't expect the game to look like the movie characters. They obviously tried to make them sort of close. They tried to...
Not in Guardians.
Not in Guardians, but I think that's the reason they did that in Guardians is because of the criticisms of Avengers. Where everyone was all like, why are you doing stunt doubles? Why are you doing...
Yeah, because like they're back to a green Drax, as well, like the original comics, like skin tone, not the red one from the movie. So yeah, I mean, part of me thinks that, it's probably a huge pivot, so they don't have this stunt double accusation going on again.
I wonder who wrote Guardians of the Galaxy, the game... Because I feel like James Gunn has had such an effect on Guardians of the Galaxy. This is going to piss off. Nobody gave a fuck about the Guardians of the Galaxy before the movie came out.
Me and Kenny and even Max, we've all said that before too. It's like, look, this franchise had fucking no notoriety before the film. It existed. I'm not saying it didn't exist, but like, it was incredibly small audience that knew anything about these characters before that.
Do you remember how pissed people were that they wasted a character on Rocket Raccoon in Ultimate.
Oh, I sure do.
Yeah, everybody was like, "Oh, what a wasted character! What a wasted character! Why did they do that?" People didn't give a fuck about our rendition of Rocket Raccoon until after the Guardians of the Galaxy came in, and they were like, "Oh, it's so different. Why is he Australian?" So no one fucking
It's just
cared.
miscommunication.
Yeah, no one fucking cared about our Rocket Raccoon being Australian until after the movies came out. And then all of a sudden the movie comes out and everybody's like, "Oh, why is he Australian?" And I was like, "Well, 3 fucking years ago, nobody knew. Like, nobody cared about this at all. We did a shitty puppet. Actually, the puppet's pretty good.
Hey,
It's the
my
puppet's
favorite episode.
the puppet's pretty good. But the point is it's not like a movie professional grade puppet. You know, it's not like a fucking
How dare you?
it's not like a fucking puppet that's going to try and fool you. We never tried to fool anybody.
We flat out even said it's a puppet in the episode. We know.
And nobody gave a shit until after the Guardians of the Galaxy movie came out. And I'm like, the Avengers, or not the Avengers game, but the Guardians of the Galaxy game, I wonder how much they mimicked the writing that James Gunn did. Maybe they didn't, outright steal jokes, but I bet you, because the characters
there has
weren't
to be
necessarily...
a little bit of a carryover, right? There has to be a little bit of like a bleed over.
Because if they did anything different, if they tried to change it at all or make it its own thing at all...
Right, well, I mean, like, if all of a sudden, like, Peter Quill was Mr. Rogers or something,
Yeah.
It'd be like, what? Like,
He has to be snarky. He has to be, pop culture.
There are certain things that I think they're inherent to him that probably got taken from the comics, got put in the James Gunn film, and are absolutely bleeding, down... into the video game too.
Yeah, I mean, he referenced the comics very heavily, but he made the characters speak in his style of speaking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Drax wasn't funny ever until the movie came out. And then Drax was funny. Like, in the second movie where he did, like, "I'm moving so slow, you can't see." Like,
Drax is one of my favorite fucking characters
yeah,
in this movie.
he's great. And what's my favorite thing is, like, hardcore fans of the Guardians of the Galaxy comics who no one ever heard from at all before the second movie came out and were like, "Oh, he ruined Drax." The 3 of them that were mad about that. Drax isn't supposed to be an idiot. He isn't supposed to be funny. It's like, Drax isn't an idiot. He's just, like, different.
He's just literal.
He's literal.
Everything is literal with him.
Which sounds stupid to a human. But he's not stupid. But my point is, like, how that game probably suffers if it doesn't take heavily from James Gunn's style. I bet you there are pissy people.
Well,
out there.
I think it suffered just because, well, at E3
they expected it not.
At
to be.
E3 it didn't look great because A, you're dealing with stream compression, but like B, the frame rate was kind of tanking at certain parts. Apparently the game's actually very polished. The release of it is like it is a very good looking game. And like it kind of like the areas that had the most work done on them are in the back half. So it's like the game gets better looking the further you get in. Like,
oh, no shit.
Like in a weird sort of way. Like I was talking to Max about it, and he was saying like you can really see where the vertical slice was, where the pitch level was made, and he's like, and it's like 16 hours into the game. Like you get there, like, this is like super highly polished and pitched, like, because they obviously worked on this section the longest.
Wow.
Which is why it's like it's the pitch meeting part of it. So, which is interesting because usually they put that shit at the front.
Well, I mean,
and then the
that's where
game
I
like
would
falls apart. Like on a flip side, to go back to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, like the beginning part of the game is really well done, really good, and then like the game gets just uglier and glitchier and just less stable.
Falls apart
further into the game. Everything is like front loaded. So this game is actually kind of like backloaded, but not in a way that where the front load is weak. Like it's still good. But point is though, it kind of suffered a little bit over the fact that it looked like, oh, okay, same publisher, same kind of deal, where it's like it's not movie versions of these characters, but it's not an online only game. It's not a loot shooter or a loot hack and slash looter.
Yeah, it's all around. It is a great game. The game that really suffered from that, and you mentioned this before, is Infinite. Infinite was not a good-looking game, but it's great.
Yeah, so Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, it kind of eked out 1.5 or 1.6 million sales. There's something really fucky about the way Capcom counts their sell through numbers, because they've never ever updated their numbers in increments other than 100,000. 100,000 increments. Like, it's never like it sold 65,000 or 55,000, sold another 20,000 units. It is always 100,000. Part of me thinks they fudge the shit out of their numbers, because if there's any sort of like somewhat positive net increase in sales,
Because they're a company.
they literally just can't say it sold 100,000 more units this quarter. It sold 100,000 units per quarter. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say, like, one, their numbers are probably fudged a little bit.
Towards the higher number? Or
Towards the
lower
higher.
number?
Because I don't...
I bet lower would
it's-
actually make them pay less taxes.
Well, here's the other thing, too, though. Like, the other problem with that is, though, it doesn't really account for, like, okay, so, like, they sold 100,000 more units. But every single game that gets a bump, even the old ones, is, we sold 100,000 units of Dead Rising 4. No, you fucking didn't. Like, not
noticed
every
that
single
before.
thing was specifically sold 100,000 more or 1 million more or whatever. It's... You're like, they're clearly rounding their numbers, and to me, every time it's like a really low performing, like, older game, it sold 100,000 units this corner. 100,000. How much is this? 100,000. 100. Please.
Yeah, I never. Oh, I mean, to be fair, you pay more attention to that than I do, and so like
It's just
I've
you
never
can't
noticed.
you can't help but notice that everything's 100,000. You know, or a million more, or this. It's never like a low, never lower than 100,000. And it's never like anything beyond like.
Do they otherwise just not mention it?
Yeah, otherwise not mention it.
Oh, okay. Well, no.
Either sold nothing or 100,000, which I'm like, okay. But anyways, not even really the point. The real fucking part of the disaster is that, like, that's not saying how much it sold for. Oh, we sold it on like this fucking budget sale for like $5.
Yeah.
Sold 100,000. You didn't make any money really. Well, not enough to really count anything, because again, and with Infinite, that's a title that has to share profits, with Disney. So
Yeah, and someone else too, right?
no, just Disney. Well, Capcom and Disney.
Yeah, it's Capcom. Yeah, I guess
There
that's
might
true,
be
yeah.
like some stuff with Strider, maybe, but anyways, so the game's at like 1.5 million sales,
which is not a
maybe,
lot, yeah.
right? And then this week alone, Namco Bandai came out and said, Dragon Ball Fighters, the game that sort of stole its thunder, has sold 8 million copies. They've sold 8 million Dragon Ball Fighters, and they've sold 1.5 Marvel vs. Capcom Infinites.
That is a hit. That's a blow.
Now, some people might, well, Dragon Ball, that's how big Dragon Ball is. Dragon Ball's big, but I still think you're out of your goddamn mind if you think that the worldwide recognition of Dragon Ball is greater than all of Marvel.
Especially now.
Especially now.
Well,
Dragon Ball's big.
and has been for 20 years.
It has been, but it's like, you're going to sit there and tell me like more of the universe is familiar with Goku and Vegeta and whatever than Spider-Man.
No, that's
and
fair.
Captain America and
Yeah.
a bunch of other characters. So no, but
So what's another? I feel like there's got to be other Butterface games.
well, I mean, that's the thing though, is that Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, it's still this weird thing where people are like, I fucking hate this guy. People still have sort of disdain for the title. But
thing
you
is-
never hear any criticism about the gameplay.
The thing is, I remember the game's not like awful looking. That's something that like
Yeah, that's the other weird thing. It's like, it's not
It's
the worst thing
fine.
ever. It definitely looks like it was made, as we know, on a shoestring.
yeah. I remember at E3, we did that crazy picture in front of the set for it.
Yeah.
And I remember the conversation being like, it's a little rough. Nobody called it like outright shitty looking.
Yeah.
Everybody was just saying, it's a little rough, they'll polish it up. And that I think we even had a podcast episode where we're like, it's not going to get that much more polished.
I think we said that in a
Yeah.
and of course.
Like,
they fixed Chun-Li's face, woohoo.
well, look, that's a big deal to some people, Steve. And Ryu, obviously, because they're lovers. Definitely.
Very much so, apparently.
They're the two most powerful characters.
Yeah.
They got to be. That's why Wonder Woman and Superman are blowing each other's backs out.
Yep.
You see, that's a joke about Superman getting pegged. And I don't know how many of you are going to be angry about that, but the more of you that are angry about that, the happier I will be.
I mean, he's a good Kansas boy. He likes to shuck some corn.
Oof. Oof.
What?
No, that's in the...
I'm saying, man, did you really go to high school, or college in Kansas? If you didn't, at least try to stick a corn cob up your ass at least once. Can you really honestly say that?
How many football coaches in Kansas have had to answer some awkward questions about that? I feel like football coaches used to be like the father figure outside. I wasn't on the football team, but you'd hear some fucking stories from the football team.
Yeah.
So how many Kansas football coaches had to answer some hard questions about butthole? Fooling around with corn. Okay.
They all end up going elsewhere, like they all join Jim Jordan's gym.
Oh.
Jokes.
Zing. Damn. Back to Butterface. Butterface games.
But yes, the point is that it was a solid game, and I still see criticisms to this day about can't believe they fucked this up, they fucked this up. And the big thing was, I mean, yeah, it's the graphics, but we are also kind of ignoring the fact, and I don't want to ignore it, is that it had no X-Men. X-Men were a staple of
they're basically
the series.
Functions.
Right. You had the function comment at E3, which didn't help the game at all. But it's like, yeah, they're stable. And all of it was from this. We don't really have any proof of this, but how is it not just the ultimate pettiness of the time where Marvel didn't want to fucking acknowledge X-Men because Fox owned them and Fox wasn't selling them the rights.
Yeah.
It was pre-buyout for Fox. So it's like, we have no proof. We have no real evidence of the fact that
but it makes sense.
But come on, of course it's that. It has to be that.
They didn't want to give
There's
Fox
no
any money,
reason
yeah.
it wouldn't be that. Everyone working on the game would have just said well, why wouldn't we put Wolverine in there or Magneto? Those two have been fucking staples for decades at this point.
Or Cable.
Or Cable.
I mean,
But no X-Men whatsoever. Come on, that was absolutely a fucking petty call from Marvel at the time.
Side note, did you see that somebody was shitting on Gambit?
I saw that. I saw
Can you
Gambit
believe
was
that?
trending and weird. And I was like, who the fuck doesn't like Gambit?
I don't know. Some piece of shit out there. That's all I'm going to say. 'Cause
Yeah.
Gambit's the man.
Who doesn't like
I mean, his
Gambit?
mask is weird.
I
but-
remember everyone being annoyed that Gambit never showed up in the fucking movies. Then he did in that Deadpool movie. And
Yeah, that was upsetting.
and then he had his own film he was supposed to get with Channing Tatum or something, and it fucking never happened.
No, it was not Channing Tatum. It was the other guy. Damn it. He was propped up to be the next big. He's a great actor. He's not a bad actor.
For the Gambit movie.
Yeah, he was propped up to be Gambit, and he was gonna. And then he had the Mars, that one Disney movie where the dude goes to Mars.
John Carpenter.
Yeah, John Carter.
John Carter.
Yeah, John Carter.
Isaac Carpenter.
Yeah.
Isaac Carpenter. Yeah, what's on my brain?
But hey, we love him too. No, but that guy, I don't know why I'm blanking on his name. He is actually a good actor.
It's funny. All I know about that movie was Andrew Stanton directed it, who came from Pixar. And never went back to live action.
I watched the movie. It's not that fucking bad.
That's what I've heard. I'm like, it's fine.
It's fine. I think we've been spoiled to the point where every movie has to be the best fucking thing that's ever come out ever, always.
Yeah.
And if it's not that, it's trash. It's 100% trash. And
that's why I'm surprised that Dune is doing as well as it is, because it doesn't really have his. Yeah, there was an 80s Dune film and it was garbage and no one ever propped it up on any pedestal.
There's loads of people who love the Lynch Dune film.
Nobody loves that film.
No, there's tons of people.
No,
who
there
do.
isn't.
Yes, there is. There's tons of people that were. Yeah, and
prove me wrong.
And the new
no fucking fans of the 80s Dune film. Lynch is not a fan of the 80s Dune film.
Yeah, well, for a different reason though. No, there's tons of people who actually are.
No.
I know. It's not a great movie.
No.
But there
are no fans. Prove me wrong. I want to be proven wrong on this.
Do you though? Because nobody should be a fan of that movie. I'm just saying there are people that are fans of that movie.
It's a ploy to oust people for being fans of terrible films.
Look, there's a lot of people that are mad, or that are absolutely like in love with that movie and like want to. Look at Chalamet, he's not even really a hero-looking character, and then they hold up the what's his name from Twin Peaks, and
Yeah,
and they hold it like, look, he looks so heroic, and I'm like, he looks like a 40-year-old. Chalamet looks like he's supposed to look.
Yeah.
You know what? This is gonna sound shitty, but I don't think people love Dune this much because Dune is actually so good, and Dune is good. I think it's because people are afraid to look like assholes the way they looked about 2049, where people are like the average moviegoer was like, I don't know, it looks boring, or I don't know, it's boring, and like so many people loved it and just came out and been like, no, it is a film.
Yeah.
It's meaty. You could rewatch it, like that whole fucking thing. And so many people are such assholes about it. I mean, we are too. I love 2049, and I'm mad that it didn't get watched as much. But like, so many people were so pretentious about it that like everybody went and watched Dune. And were like, yeah, it's fantastic. It's the best. I know film. I love movies.
I mean, there are a lot of people like, dude, it was like, I mean, I've heard a lot of people like, dude, it was boring. It was so boring. And
there was a lot of that too. Yeah.
Like, yeah, well, again, you just want to see fucking go, with lightsabers. That's all you fucking. And you know what? That's fine. That's fine. You know
the
what?
thing I'm pissed about Dune is they cut out all of Gurney Halleck's ballast set playing. And they shot it all. They just cut it all out because it was too slow.
I heard about that shit.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, but that's like such a key thing about Gurney. Maybe they'll put it in more of it in the next movie when Gurney's more important.
I know Jason Momoa was sitting there like, give me the 4-hour cut.
Yeah, give me the 4-hour cut. and Vinod was just like, there is no 4-hour cut. There will never be a 4-hour cut.
Well, he said that about Blade Runner. I mean, part of me is like, yeah, but there's a lot of fucking context they filmed for Dune apparently that was cut. Where I feel like with Blade Runner, like, would I watch his 4-hour cut of Blade Runner? Yes. Would I assume that it's going to be a better movie? They're like, important key things were lost. No, I don't think anything was lost. I think he's absolutely right in that, the 2.5-hour Blade Runner we got was exactly what it needed to be.
Yeah.
But would I watch a 4-hour cut of that? Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
He said it was like boring and badly paced and yada yada. He tried to like downplay the whole Blade Runner cut.
Yeah, but sometimes when you like the texture of a movie, you're willing to deal with poor pacing.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of my favorite things about 2049 is how annoyed people were that Ryan Gosling was the main character. And the reason people are annoyed is like, oh, I don't buy him as like a robot, or like as he's too perfect and he doesn't have like he doesn't play the character right. Like, you've seen those criticisms. Yeah.
No, but like, I'd also sit there and argue like
he's the perfect person to cast for that fucking role.
Like, more human than human is the entire basis of replicants in the movie.
But also, like, one of the arguments was like, you don't buy him, like his emotional range isn't enough, which one I don't buy that either.
Also, part of, well, I don't buy it, but like also kind of supposed to be the thing, because there are little short films that take place right before where they talk about how, like, because replicants were outlawed.
He did a kick-ass job.
And the whole thing was that like they were outlawed because they went rogue. And so they basically, Neander Wallace was his character was supposed to, he convinced the political bodies of Earth at the time that he could make replicants that would obey and that would follow directions, follow orders, without fail. So that was the kind of the whole point, is that they built this perfect little tin soldier man who's not supposed to fucking
Joe.
Yeah, K's his name, really. Joe is a fucking illusion.
Yeah, but my whole
so we're gonna wax poetic about Blade Runner for a little while now.
Yeah, I guess, you know what? Yeah, well, let's get back on it, because that's not a Butterface movie. Movie's beautiful.
It's not
A counterpoint to the Butterface game,
but it is a sequel to Drive.
It basically is, yeah.
K is 100% based off the original version of the human that was in Drive.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, you can totally see that.
Like, you could almost in your head build up like how one is canonically a prequel.
Yeah, the only difference between those characters is that Kay talks more. That's it. Kay talks more than the character in Drive.
That might be true.
Oh, it definitely is. One's a Refn movie, and I don't know how to say that guy's name. Nicholas Winding Ref. I should find out how to say it.
Fond.
Really?
No.
Oh, wow. Because I love his movies visually, but goddamn, sometimes. Only God Forgives has some of the coolest visuals ever. Cannot watch more than half of it. I fucking get lost, and I'm just like, but it does have the one line where he's just like, "Hey, want to fight?" It's just him in an elevator with a guy. You're just like, all right, I'll see that. But counterpoint to the Butterface games, which we could probably think of other Butterface.
When we're talking about Butterface, we need to be, mention too that it's like, it's not a game that looks bad now because time has passed and technology's caught up, and
It's a game that looked bad
aged
then.
poorly. I mean, like the game came out and people were kind of like, eh.
Minecraft. Minecraft is the ultimate Butterface game, right? It looks like absolute trash.
But it's almost like there's a charm to the fact that it looks like fucking low res blocks.
Yeah, sure.
So they kind of like, it's kind of like using the technology to its advantage.
And there's
there.
people who think Metal Gear Solid is the best looking version because of that. There's people who think it's charming because it looks like blocky, fucking, and sure.
Well, I mean, the thing was, like, at the time when Metal Gear Solid came out, nobody was sitting there saying, like, oh, it's blocky. Like, no, that's what graphics look like.
And it looked great for the time.
Yeah, exactly. But, like, with Marvel Infinite, with Guardians of the Galaxy, like, these games, well, at least in Guardians feels like it was more just sort of like a rough first impression, low frame rate, they're doing their own thing with the character models.
Because it looks great now.
It looks like Avengers. Like, apparently it looks very polished on release. Infinite, really not so much. Like, it looked rough, came out looking rough.
Yeah.
The other problem was it had all its thunder stolen by Dragon Ball FighterZ getting announced. And it's like, FighterZ, it's not, and I don't want to sit here and say like, oh, FighterZ is a bad game or whatever, but
it's not necessarily a better game than Infinite was. I mean,
it's not necessarily,
it looked a lot better.
like
it's more stylized.
Of the people who have really dived into both, like actually dived into both, most people I know prefer the gameplay of Marvel Infinite over Dragon Ball, but it's just like Dragon Ball got continued support for years after release and yada yada, and it's like, because Dragon Ball looks really good.
It has more style.
Yeah,
There's no style.
It's a much better looking game, so it kind of just won out. I don't think it's a franchise thing. I don't think Dragon Ball is just a bigger franchise than Marvel. No, it's fucking not. Like,
well, conversely, what's a game that looks really great but otherwise isn't there?
Yeah, that's a good question, because like Dragon Ball's still a good game. It's got a good game, and it does look good.
I was actually going to say, and granted, I like both these games, but I think the reason they're as popular as they are is because they're so good looking, and it's Last of Us. Last of Us and Last of Us 2.
Oh, 100% agree there. I feel that way. Okay, there's an old joke in Family Guy. It's kind of a terrible, like, phobic joke where they talk about, like, how did we get all of Congress to agree to go to war, with Iraq, and then Peter Griffiths is like, anyone who doesn't want to go to war, is gay. Like, that was like the joke. And then all these Republican congressmen were like, I want to go to war. I want to go to war. And then like someone goes, I was the first one who wanted to go to war. Right, so it's like but like I just remember the whole, I was the first one to say it, and I'm like, to me, I'm like with Last of Us, I was like, I was the first one who was sitting there saying like, this game is very pretty, but it's a bog ass standard stealth third person shooter otherwise.
I like the game. I've never made it a secret that I like the game, and I actually think that there was some like really cool shit that the writing did with the game.
Sure, I think it's very well acted.
But I think if it didn't look nearly as good as it did, if it wasn't nearly as good looking, if it didn't look like a fucking movie, wouldn't be nearly as popular.
Yeah, if it looked like a THQ game.
Yeah, it wouldn't be nearly as popular. That's upsetting.
They're gone.
That's
they
fair.
can't even be upset at me. If it looked like a Midway game, there you go. It makes you feel any better.
Have you ever liked, have you ever liked Time Splitters' art style and stuff? Have you ever thought like?
I thought it looked like, I didn't hate it, but I was like, oh, that's the Free Radical design.
Yeah, it's the Free Radical,
because like Second Sight also
Second Sight looks like that. All of their games look like that.
They had that. I was like, oh, it's the Free Radical look.
I've never personally thought that they look great, but I've always liked them playing. I was gonna say, like, to me, Free Radical games in general, but like specifically like Time Splitters 2 is a Butterface game. I don't think it's a good looking game, but
It's got a very
it's very fun.
well. It's got a cartoonish but realistic style. Like
It's a weird halfway. They didn't pick.
yeah, it's like in between there.
I prefer a stylized.
I think it being stylized means it looks better now than a hyper realistic game of the PS2 era.
Yeah, it lasts. It has lasting power.
But it did look weird even when it came out. I'm like, okay,
did.
these are some weird looking character models.
I feel like there's probably a bunch of games that like are personally Butterface games, like games you're like, man, it looks like shit. But God, is it fun? That people will be like, no, it looks great. It's a great art style. I'm sure there's somebody out there that's like, Okami is a Butterface game, and they're wrong, but like there's somebody out there who doesn't like that, or like Twilight Princess,
Right.
or something, or Wind Waker. Like Mike likes Wind Waker, he just thinks it looks like shit.
I'm in the same boat. I really don't like the way Wind Waker looks personally.
But you think it's a decent game.
I do think it's got a timeless art style to it.
Yeah, we'll never
like
look
it doesn't look aged. It just always looks bad.
another Butterface game though.
I don't like the way I really don't like Super Deformed. I really don't like Chibi. I really don't like that style.
I don't mind it.
I find it off-putting. I find it extremely hard to get emotionally involved or attached. It's like, oh, but the expressions are so expressive. I'm like, no, they're not. To me, they're just like they're emojis. Emojis can do a wide range of expressions too. Like, but I don't get emotionally fucking attached to them. Just like
so next you're gonna attack my favorite film, Emoji Film.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that what's gonna happen?
I was
here?
wondering if that was gonna come up.
Piece of
But
shit.
yeah, it's like because like Link, oh, but he has such expressions in his eyes and his face. I'm like, he has big round eyes with ovals, and they just squash and stretch the shit out of them, and give him big smiles. Or
and
whatever,
in later games, he's plenty expressive. It's just because the technology caught up.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
like I feel like where Zelda is now. I honestly feel where Zelda is now is where it needs to be.
Okay.
I think Twilight. I think Twilight Princess is a weird case where like the concept art was fucking fantastic, but I think the end game was really held back by the limitations of the hardware.
Well, yeah.
Like it just when they did the remake, it really needed a lot more than just replacing all the textures. It needed a full ground up remake.
And it was a victim of the fact that they tried to release it on both, right? They didn't just go to, and the Wii wasn't, or the Wii U. No, it was the Wii.
The Wii originally.
Yeah, the Wii wasn't necessarily a huge jump.
Yeah, it had more. It had more RAM.
Yeah, but it was a jump.
So yeah, to me that's a case of like the game definitely did not age as well as Wind Waker, but I think the concept art is fantastic. But like now where Zelda is where I think it needs to be. Personally, I would like it if they would go back to a little bit darker tones and shades like Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess concept art and apply that to the current Breath of the Wild era Zeldas. That'd
Majora's
be pretty nice
Mask.
because the game does look a little bright and pastel-y. That's like probably my only real knock with the art style, the graphics of Twilight Princess. I'm sorry, Breath of the Wild, is that it does have a vaguely sort of washed out feel to it. You can kind of alleviate that with the emulation because a lot of it is just the depth of field is really short because it's a Wii U game.
And you can add, you can probably add contrast and stuff to
absolutely,
it.
100%. So, and people have dicked around with it to like varying, mixed results. Some are good, some are bad. But yeah, like I would like it if they maybe tried to go a little bit, little more darker tones, a little more shading, just more shading in general, I guess. For Breath of the Wild stuff, but I think it's where it needs to be. I think it's in a good place right now.
I wonder if they're ever going to do a hyper-realistic Zelda. I feel like it'll happen eventually.
That's the weird thing is like some people are like, oh, you just want realistic Zelda. I'm like, well, when I say I want realistic Zelda, I just want Link to have correct anatomy. I don't want him to be a block with like 4 tiny stubs.
Yeah.
For arms and legs. And,
tiny little square legs and then like long torso.
And this big oval head, like no.
Yeah.
No. Even though that is kind of how he looks in my fucking favorite game of all time, but it's like that's as good as the hardware can do. Like,
and also, there's just not a lot you can see from the size of screen. Like they only have so much. The head has to be the biggest thing on the body. So okay, what would you say is, to like wrap up the ideas? What is the number one like Butterface game that you can think of? Like it is just the worst looking game, but you love it.
the really fucking harsh side of me wants to say like most of Rare's library,
Oh,
but it's like they're very technologically accomplished games.
and I remember one time I said that Jet Force Gemini doesn't look good,
It doesn't,
but it
does.
so many people got so mad.
but it does and it doesn't. Like it is for the hardware it's on, it's actually pretty good. Not the best looking game they made for the N64.
Banjo would probably be the best, wouldn't it?
Yeah, Banjo Tooie is probably their most accomplished looking game on the system.
Yeah.
Perfect Dark is up there. It's a blurry fucking mess now.
Yeah, you can't really. It sucks to judge them by today's standard because basically anything on the N64 is a Butterface game now. Yeah, you look back and you're just like,
honest to God though, like Banjo Kazooie and Banjo Tooie are like two of I don't even know.
They've aged well.
Aged well. Like they're not blurry.
Yeah.
They're not fuzzy. They're not washed out looking. They're like they're some of the only fucking games on the system to look clear, crisp, clean. And
I've said it before, but like RE4, you go back to RE4 now, it's muddy as fuck.
it's a muddy.
It doesn't. It looks like a mess.
But that's time. That's different from like this game.
Yeah. So specifically, at the time it came out,
What
was a game that you were like, bleh?
it's a dead horse for me, but I think both of them are kind of true. And one is Xenoblade X.
Okay.
With the as everyone called like the especially characters like Lynn in the game, like they call him the potato face.
What?
Yeah. Xenoblade X because okay, so the character designer for the game, Kunihiko Takada, he draws an anime style, but he has very rounded features. You know how anime is very angular most of the time? Well, his character designs are very unique in the sense that he has very rounded off chins, noses, like they're very rounded, like they're not.
And that's how you're gonna get a potato face, yeah.
And that's how you get these potato faces because when they tried to make it in 3D, boy, like not all the faces, like one of the main characters, Elmo, looks pretty damn good, but like the other main character, Lynn, looks fucking rough. With that, and then the other argument is it's more preference. I think it's way more preference and less technical was Xenoblade 2, where the character designs of that game are kind of fucking awful, at least half the time. And then the other half are pretty great, but like...
Which I would argue is probably the most important part of that game is the characters. Well, you like environments a lot.
Yeah, I'm a big environment porn kind of person,
Yeah.
so... for me, I was like, I really don't fucking care. I thought before the game came out, I was like, oh, whatever. The idea, I'm like, whoa, these costumes are fucking stupid. I'll just change them because all the Xenoblades up to that point had costume swapping and all these different and that was the only one that didn't. And I was like, fuck. Oh, well. But I was like, at the end of the day, I was like, oh, well, whatever. Like, I'm not really here for them. I'm here for the world kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, but... There's nothing really technically wrong. In fact, they're very highly detailed. They're over-designed. That's actually their big problem, is that they're over-fucking-designed.
What do you mean when you say over-designed?
So they've got too many features, too many things going on with it.
Too many options?
Well, the main character's supposed to be wearing like this sort of steampunk diver suit. So it looks weird. And then it has all this attachments and accoutrements, and is like his helmet is... laying back open, and he's got like these weird thigh pads, and he's really weird looking metal boots, and there's like so much design and engraving, and like it's busy work all the fuck over it. It's over designed, like for the main character. And then like you can kind of say the same thing about the chick, but like it's funny because like one of the main chicks to me, I'm like, she looks like she's running around in a fucking bath towel dress, like it's so under designed. And then, they later gave a different costume.
I think I'm not picturing the same game.
Xenoblade 2?
Yeah, I must be picturing the wrong game.
I mean, I could show you images, but
yeah, that's
the main blonde chick, Mithra. She looks like she's running around in a fucking bath towel. And then they gave her a costume because in Smash Brothers they had to cover her up, so they had to change her art. Before she was a character, they literally were just like, the art alone is too much for the game. Too risque. So they basically gave her tights, like silk stockings, I
sexed her up a little bit.
Yeah, and
because a real man.
So they covered
sex.
up her legs, they covered up her boob window, and then apparently Monolith was so happy with the redesign. They're like, this design's cool. Let's make it free DLC in Xenoblade 2, and they did. And I never play without it now.
No shit.
Yeah, because some people are like, oh, why you got to censor her? I'm like, I don't know. I think she honestly looks better. Like, everyone's running around in like their weird fucking anime costumes, and this chick is practically fucking naked. She's running around in a fucking towel. Like, I'm not playing Dead or Alive here. Like, I don't know. Like like the cutscenes are really weird too, because again, it's one of those. It's both in the main game and in the DLC prequel. Like, you have these serious moments where they're talking about, actual thing, like serious subject matters or whatever, and then this chick is just sitting here straight up fucking like, you're wearing a towel. Like,
I mean, look, I'm never gonna get mad at someone for being comfortable.
have a conversation about the politics of war and like the good versus evil and like the loss of life versus the greater good, and then this chick is having this conversation with you while she's wearing a towel.
What's that? There's a movie where like a dude's nut is just always out. And like they're having real conversations, it's just one testicle. It's like that. What movie is that?
I don't know.
I can't remember what it is, but it's just like he's just dying. He's wearing short shorts, so just like one nut, and it just keeps getting more and more
Step
out.
Brothers, is it?
I don't know.
Is it a Will Ferrell movie?
I feel like it's a Will Ferrell movie, or no, it's. I bet it's a Ben Stiller movie.
Maybe Ben Stiller.
That feels like a Ben
Apparently
Stiller
his
movie.
nut in Step Brothers was fake.
Oh.
Like I saw in an interview, and it's like, yeah, it's not his real ball.
I mean, yeah, I don't blame him. Who wants to put their real nut out there?
Oh, right on camera.
Yeah.
Touch a drum set with it. But no, see, but the thing was Xenoblade 2, I'm like, I feel like that's more of a artistic preference versus like, oh, this is ugly. And some people are, it's so fucking ugly. But like Xenoblade X on the Wii U, it just, that guy's art, it's great art, but fuck, it does not translate into 3D.
Really?
It just doesn't,
But
man.
you love that game so much.
I do. Like, X on the Wii U is very much like, these characters, like, the environments are all
Beautiful,
wallpapers, every time you take a screenshot. But, like, to be fair, like, the character models themselves, they look ugly. They look ugly on a personal, artistic, technical level. Like, they're just bad. So
Fair. Yeah. I've never really played Xenoblade. I've seen you playing it, and I've watched your stream a couple times playing it. I don't know what it is. I think like anime characters, I don't necessarily get as drawn into the art style. I shouldn't say that. Samurai like Champloo and like Cowboy Bebop, which apparently the live action one's going to suck huge balls. All the reviews are coming out now, and it's just like, oh, it's so bad. But apparently they stuck really faithfully to the anime, but it was too low budget. They couldn't do everything that.
Well, one thing I heard was that like they kind of shrunk the universe because they took the storylines, which, as you remember the original series, they're very sort of
spread out,
segregated.
Yeah,
there's 5 core story episodes, and the rest are kind of their own thing. Whereas in the show, they try to incorporate what were standalone episodes into the main narrative plot. And they say that kind of makes the universe feel a lot smaller because of it.
Yeah.
They're trying to relate everything back to the main plot line. And then the other thing I've heard is that it's a lot more, like they say, it's more juvenile because there's a lot more swearing and a lot more gore. Like it's like there are a lot.
Oh, really?
And you can see it in the trailer, like where like Spike goes like, "What in the actual fuck is that?" And like Spike actually never said "fuck" in the original show. So I guess like being like extra gory and having a copious amounts of swearing, some people like it actually makes the show feel more juvenile.
It's for adults
than
now.
the cartoon. Yeah, which we've had this argument with Wolverine, where you're like, "There's too many F words in Logan."
Yeah.
To bring it all back to Marvel, like where you were like, Logan has way too many F bombs, and I was like, really? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I know the film opens with him saying "fuck." That is the first line of the film.
Cursing in a movie, either it is very, and I know this is crazy coming from us because we curse so much, but cursing in a movie should be kind of like salt and pepper. Like it should serve a purpose.
Yeah.
If it doesn't punctuate something, if you don't need it in the sentence, just like any other word in your line in dialogue, cut it. Dialogue at the height of all dialogue is poetic. It's very like iambic, right? Your Shakespearean, has like a flow. Hard consonant words, specifically like fuck, can be very funny or very like punchy at the right point. It's why you reorder, like nobody would say, no one would call you a fuck necessarily, right?
Right.
But
maybe if you're in New York.
Well, where this started from is like, it's a hard consonant end word became very popular after, I want to say possibly Mamet used it. Mamet was a poet and he wrote a lot of like theater and shit too. And he used iambic meter in all of his movies. But like he ended it on a hard consonant to make it punch harder. And the only thing he could think to call the guy, is just you lousy fuck. If I'm remembering correctly, it's his thing. And that's where it started, the idea of like a fuck can be a noun, it can be whatever you want. Because like if you hit it at the right point, it's 10 times funnier to end it on a hard consonant. Hard consonant words are just funnier. Dick, the reason why dick is funnier than dickhead, it's shorter, it's quicker, and it ends on a hard consonant. Shit like that.
True.
You're educated in comedy writing. That's what my degree's in. But these are things that they talk about. Like you can get into actual debates with people who did way more writing education than I did, all about like consonants and then they have whole discussions will be all about what type of cursing and how much enhances a movie versus
and
takes
I remember
away.
saying that about Alan Tudyk in the Harley Quinn show.
Yeah.
Where I was like, wow, like he really, there's definitely a lot of swearing, but the most copious amount of swearing and gore is in the first episode. They said they did that on purpose because they said any fucking parent who goes
accidentally,
in and, it's like, oh, Harley Quinn, and my kids can watch this. They're like, we made it really over the top, sweary and violent in the first episode, just to sort of like weed out anyone from else. And then like everyone points out, like all the rest of the episodes, yes, they're swearing, but they're very. It's not as constant, and
it's much more drawn in, reined in.
Yeah. There's a line Alan Tudyk says because he plays dual roles. He plays Clayface and Joker, and
yeah,
I love that near the end of season 1, like there's like a part where he thinks he throws Harvey into a vat of acid, but then like he's walking away and he's like, where's the splash? And like all of a sudden he's like, why isn't she dead? Why are all these vines growing up? Oh, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is moment. It's like the voice drop. And
the person who, right now, I would say is like the best at using the F word is probably Martin McDonagh. Uses the F word like he uses like a fucking conductor's wand. I think a lot of people would say that, like, Tarantino or Samuel L. Jackson uses the word motherfucker just like poetry.
Yeah.
But I would say almost Samuel Jackson says it in a way, he delivers it in a way that makes it magical every time he delivers it. But it isn't, I wouldn't say he necessarily, like, it's a baseball bat when he uses it. Like, it is punctuation. I don't necessarily think he's doing anything poetic.
The fucking the scene rep for intermission on Hateful Eight.
Yeah.
It's not even fuck. Actually, I think it's dick or cock or something.
Yeah. Yeah, he delivers it. But yeah, no, I think that there's something to be said about really reining in, because if you use it properly, it should have a jarring effect. Swearing is supposed to add emphasis. If you use it too much, it loses all meaning. The first time in First Class, when Wolverine tells them to fuck off, it hits hard.
Yeah.
When he goes fuck off, and everybody's like, whoa, what? Nobody does that. Well, Wolverine does that because he literally does not give a shit.
Yeah.
At all. He hasn't lost his memory yet. He doesn't fucking care anymore. In Logan, I think they got the R rating and they decided we're going to justify the R rating with everything we possibly can. And rather than just do it with the gore, they decided to go over the top. You had this in the late 90s. In the late 90s, early 2000s, when everything was R because they thought that's what
was, anyways, for sure.
They thought that's what sold movies. F words, and it's sort of like how racial slurs or slurs in general now, because Tarantino did it in the 90s and in every fucking movie that he does. Dude's got kind of a hard on for it, but every movie that he did it, and now it's become more and more popular, and like Martin McDonagh does it too, and you see in all these movies where they they try to mimic that, but they don't hit it right because they're not using it like a tool. They're using it for,
There's an
punchy
interesting
effect.
there's an interesting sort of film history where if you go 70s to 2000s and you sort of see the sort of like softening, if you will, of ratings. And I don't mean from like how films are rated, I mean what films are made.
Yeah.
And then the 70s you had X-rated films.
Well, James Bond, if
In
I remember
general.
correctly,
One of them
rated,
was.
one of them was rated X when it
Yeah,
first
and they
came
had
out.
to like cut shit out.
Because there was like a girl in a bikini that came out of the water in kind of a sensual way, and they were like, "Well, that's porn."
Yeah, that's porn. Yeah, I do remember hearing about that. Some Bond head.
Back in my day, my dick would be so hard.
So like you got that, and then like the 80s, like there was a big drive to have R-rated films in the 80s and then the early 90s, and then like by you get to about 2000s, and then all of a sudden PG-13 becomes the
standard.
number you want to hit.
Spielberg kind of like
He introduced PG-13 because that didn't exist until a late 80s. But like even then, PG-13 wasn't the rating every studio was shooting for when it came out. It took about 10 plus years.
It became a catch-all where like you could have some racy material, but kids could still see it, which means the families
I was
are going
shocked
to
to
make a lot
learn
of
this. I
money.
mean, I've never seen the movie. Someone gave it to me and I never watched it. Have you ever heard of Fritz the Cat?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Apparently, it was one of the best performing films the year it came out.
Yeah. Yeah. Did really well. And there's like loads and loads of weird.
What the fuck? Like that just blows my mind. Because I figured it was just sort of like a weird art house thing that just made its way through like notoriety and like cult film circles or something. No, it was actually a fucking super fucking hit in the 70s when it came out. And the 70s were apparently just a wild time where like New York was just littered with adult theaters.
Yeah, there was whole streets. Off Broadway, for instance.
Yeah.
So
So
it was one of the big reasons why all those theaters.
there's just a weird thing. And yeah, I remember the one X-rated film I have seen, I haven't seen all of it, I only saw part of it, was Alice in Wonderland. An X-rated musical fantasy.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't
Made
know
in
that.
the 70s. Full-on musical production, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's a porno. I mean, well, it's an X-rated film, which means like it's not. What that means is basically it's not porn 100% of the time all the time. It just means
there
that
is
like
nudity and
like they'll like they have this sort of plot going on and people are talking and then randomly they have to like stop and have sex. For some reason.
There's another like Behind the Green Door is another one like that. Film school's got sexy things too, kids. You can learn about.
How awkward is that?
Well, you don't watch them in class stuff. They just talk about them. They because a lot of Italian New Wave has shit like that.
Yeah.
You can actually see, especially from the time, you can see New Wave, French and Italian New Wave influences on porn if you've ever seen 70s porn. But the big reason why porn started exploding in the 70s is because prostitutes had always been getting filmed. They just realized now that they could make more money by controlling, their image. And so they actually got like agents and like pimps literally transitioned into agencies and shit like that. And it cleaned everything up, comparatively speaking. And so it didn't become underground anymore. And basically you had like pimps buying theaters and just showing porn. And so it exploded, but then there was like actual filmmakers who couldn't get, money for their, feature, art house, whatever, would turn around and take porn money.
That's what happened to Ed Wood, isn't it?
I think Ed Wood did.
Career, like he couldn't get films made anymore,
so he had to take porn money and so his movies would have hardcore sex scenes.
Yeah, so he would just throw a bunch of titties and maybe some sex in his film. That's what I heard happened to. I don't know. I'd have to like look into it again, but I remember that happening. Where
it's like why every '80s comedy has some form of full-on nudity in it. Like sometimes for no reason. Porkies and shit like that.
I don't remember what the name of the film was. Someone will know. There's a Harrison Ford film. It's a World War II era film, and my friend had it on DVD, and the DVD said It was like PG Canadian, with a little fucking maple leaf on it. And there's a part in the film where this German chick is taking a bath, like in a wooden bath, round bathtub, and she just stands up, full on not full on, but like bust high, full nudity, like just full fucking tit shot.
Wow.
And I was like, the fuck? And then like, but then I was like, it's Canadian PG. I double check the box. I'm like, okay, I know shit slipped through, but really, like full fucking breasts,
Wow.
like, and by the way, it was like a different country's PG. I don't remember what the movie was, but it was in the 80s, and it was just like, we're making this war movie, and it's about this thing or whatever. Like, let's just have this chick just like in a tub, get out of it, just because.
I don't know this for sure, because I don't have any source. It's just like something I have observed. I think in the early 80s they wanted to compete with porn theaters more.
Yeah, maybe like drive them out or something.
And so they put more nudity into mainstream films to like try and basically be like, yeah, we got racist.
But it's
shit
weird
too.
how like it was just completely gratuitous. Like,
Yeah.
like it had served absolutely zero.
The 80s were a wild
purpose
fucking
to
time.
the film.
80s, like, I'm not saying like, oh, being woke is like the coolest shit ever or something, but like there's obvious differences from today.
Well,
back then.
I hate feeling like I hate feeling emotionally manipulated by a film. Like, for example,
I think that's the fucking point. I
well,
think the point of film is to emotionally manipulate.
Well, in the sense of like, let's just throw a naked chick in there to give the audience some boners, just throw it in. We don't care. Like,
the more boners, well,
well,
horror
it's like,
films,
or like they drag out like a pet dying or something like that. And I'm like, I stopped feeling sad, and then I'm just like, oh, you're fucking dragging this out. Like, okay, like, you know what? You don't have to like drag it out to get your point across. Like, that's what I don't. I don't like that sort of like feeling for people. Most people just call it forced.
Yeah.
For me, I'm like, yeah, it's just fucking emotional manipulation or whatever. Like, the only film I can think of, and maybe not the only, but like going back to it, the most tasteful nudity I can remember in a film is Blade Runner.
Well, because the point of it is that
It's not focused on, but it is there, and it does serve a fucking purpose.
it is also the way it is shot and the way it's set up is that it is supposed to be bodies no longer have value. Nudity no longer has value. Especially replicant bodies. Nobody gives a fuck about it.
Yeah, or
the
hologram bodies.
That's a huge thing in cyberpunk in general, right? Cyberpunk is all about how the soma, the body, no longer fucking means anything. You can do whatever you want to. You can change whatever you want to.
Yeah, but there's just a lot of good symbolism too at the end where, spoilers, whatever, like you see the billboard of Joy, the hologram of Joy, but she's like butt fucking naked. But she's got like the blue hair, but she has like the fucking weird, creepy, dead, like brownish red eyes.
Yeah.
And then like when she's walking away, like the ad is over because it's not selling anything to the guy. It's like it's everything you want to hear, everything you want to see, and you just find out that like, oh, that really sweet, good-natured, well-dressed Joy
version of it is just what he wanted to see and hear.
Just what he wanted to see and hear. He was just being manipulated.
One of the best, most annoying arguments that I think you were there for is when people were like, "Oh yeah, no, I think he really had a connection with her." I was like, "No, that's the fucking point."
I think they tried to sell it really well. Like
Yeah.
they did a good job of put me in the hollow emitter, take me off the home system, break the antenna. Like she's going against all these fucking prime directives
to be
for
everything
the
you
walls.
want her to be.
Right. So the
what she's
argument is just kind of
supposed
like,
to
no,
do.
her love was real, and it's like, was it real, or was that just all part of her programming? Like, because
that's what she is.
Well, see, the thing is, like, they don't trace where Kay is through Joy. They trace it through the LAPD. Mm-hmm. They're not, because she does break the antenna. There's even a part where you see Love go into the apartment and she finds the broken antenna and she's fucking pissed. But like, you can even double that back to other scenes where she's just like, I'm glad I see you're a user of our products. I'm glad to see you're enjoying it. I'm glad to see it's meeting your satisfaction or whatever. Like, it was doing its job too well.
It is supposed to be one of the hardest hitting points of the film. And like so many people are like, no, I believe that she really meant it. And I was like, and that's the fucking point. We are too easy to manipulate, and they can write a program, social media, that fucking manipulates how you feel all the
It
time.
would do all these things that you would think it would be programmed not to do.
The problem is we're getting all the dystopian of cyberpunk and none of the cool side. Like, why can't I have
that whole
adamantium
meme
legs?
of like what people see? Wow, cool future tech, and then there's all this like subtext,
fine print, yeah.
Subtext of what cyberpunk is supposed to be about: dystopian futures, overrun capitalism, yada yada
We
yada.
should
yada.
have robots that can murder each other, just like in Terminator. That'd be great. You missed the rest of it, though, man. You really fucked that up.
Yeah, exactly. Like we are getting that because we've had AI drone strikes authorize their own kills.
Yeah. Boston Dynamics is making foot soldiers and shit.
That already happened. We had a drone that like found a target, determined it was a threat, on its own AI programming decided to initiate an attack and kill said target.
Yeah, I don't
that
know why
happened this year.
Shocking.
Welcome, welcome to the dystopian future.
The thing that I think is crazy is like all the people flipped out about that robotic cheetah looking thing that has a big sniper rifle on its back.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, it can basically like hike into an area that like a human couldn't get to, take the shot and then self-destruct or run all day all night to get away and hide and like have a helicopter pick it up or whatever the fuck. And they're like, yeah, I mean, we don't have to risk a human life and shit. And it's like, yeah, but I don't know, part of me is like, war and violence should cause, like, we should have humans involved. I don't know, I feel like, the morality of it, like, it's supposed to have a moral cost. It should. Maybe. Just sending a drone down there and it's like, drone killed a kid again. Oh shit, I guess we fix that next time. Next iteration. We'll patch that next time.
Yeah, just like pass it on to the fucking code junkie.
Yeah.
It's his problem.
It feels gross.
Yep.
But we're getting that anyway. Good night, everybody. But to end out on a positive note, what is a game like I was going to say Ape Escape. I was going to say when Ape Escape came out on PS1,
I think
didn't
Ape Escape was considered very good looking when it came out on PS1.
Okay, so here's the problem: is I played it like 8 years after it came out.
Oh, okay.
I got maybe not that long, but I got the original one on PS1, and I didn't think it looked that good. I guess you could also say Blasto looked like shit.
Definitely Blasto,
but it also was shitty. So it wasn't a Butterface; it was just ugly all the way through. But the voice acting in it was fun. So.
I got one for you.
Okay.
Geometry Wars.
But does it look like shit?
No, but it doesn't look like anything special either.
That's fair. And
it came out at a time when like everything was about HD graphics, what HD can do for you, and here's this game that's basically shapes.
Yeah, that's fair, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
And it was fun. It was, it was colorful, and that was good. But I think you could also definitely make the argument that I'm like, well,
there's a lot of arcade like Xbox arcade games that I think fall into that where they're just not great looking, but they're also like really fun.
And that was the joy of Xbox Live Arcade at the start. Was like, okay, you're gonna get these games and maybe they don't look the best, but they're gonna have hopefully they'll have the Geometry Wars, all the heart,
loads of fun, which Game Pass might bring back.
I think it is in a way, especially with like the indie stuff.
Yeah. Any final Butterface games off the top of your head that you can go through?
There, I know there are. I honestly like even
there's got to be a million of them.
Yeah, there is. Like even with the remake Nier Replicant, the first Nier, I'm like, it's still kind of an ugly ass
like
game.
Shit.
It's still kind of yes, it's touched up now, and yes, they redid the character models, but like it's still
like a whole lot of RTSs. Like Age of Empires 2, I didn't think looked that good even when it was new, and I know probably there's some people that are like, no, it looked great for the time. But it was muddled shit. I actually think Age of Mythology looked better, and that might be blasphemy for some people. Because Age of Mythology was like 3D characters instead of...
Yeah, I don't know. For me, I'm like, I know there's a lot. But
that's going to be the viewer question is like, what is the ugliest goddamn game?
Ugliest, best playing game.
But also so fun.
Yeah.
Like really well playing, but ugly. And I know someone's going to say Rhyme because they want to piss you off, and also because a lot of people didn't like
here's
Rhyme's
the other
looks.
thing. It's got to be a game that was ugly when it came out. You can't sit there and say, like, oh, all these PS1 and Saturn and N64. Fuck yeah,
I feel like a lot
know.
of PS1 games, though, were ugly when it came out.
Well, we didn't know any better at the time. We thought it looked great at the time.
Yeah.
But I
like
mean...
Siphon Filter. I could argue Siphon Filter didn't look great at the time.
It looked funny. He still had a funny run even at the time.
Like, yeah, the animation was not good, but I liked Siphon Filter. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's a really good...
Spec Ops The Line is another one where it did not look that great, but it played wonderful. SOCOM, I would also kind of argue...
I would argue SOCOM didn't look that good.
It did not look that good.
Even when it came out, I'd argue SOCOM didn't look that good.
There's a lot of Butterface
EverQuest.
EverQuest. Ooh, really? You think so? Morrowind. Morrowind, by the way, looked like brown. It looked like different shades of turd.
I remember Morrowind looked like shit when it came out.
Yeah.
Literal shit.
People said Oblivion looked bad, but I don't think Oblivion looked that bad for the time.
It was mostly the character models.
Yeah, well, all of it.
And there was a lot of bloom.
Yeah.
But mostly just the fact that how hideous the characters always look hideous in Elder Scrolls games. But I think Morrowind looked uglier at release
so bad.
than Oblivion looked at
It
release.
looked so bad.
Morrowind never looked good.
I owned Morrowind on the original Xbox, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I played maybe 20 minutes of it.
Fable could be a good one.
Did Fable look like shit, though?
No, Fable had that Time Splitters effect where like the people looked weird.
Yeah.
Like the environments were actually fine in Fable, but the people looked kind of
I'll
weird.
buy that. Yeah, I'll buy that. So anyway, that's our commentary. If you got a Butterface game.
Yeah, what's your Butterface game?
And if you get like if there's a really good one, like one that really like makes both of us go like, "Oh shit." We'll continue the topic next week for the intro. I want to like bring it up because
okay.
There's got to be something we're forgetting that's like over the top.
Yeah, remember, it has to be ugly when it came out. Looked bad on release. No, looks bad now. Looked bad over time. Looked bad, a couple years after. Yeah, it had to look bad when it came out.
And no saying Metal Gear Solid because it didn't look bad.
No, Metal Gear Solid was considered very good looking for a game when it came out. When it came out in 1998, it looked great.
I'm trying to think of a GameCube game that looked like utter shit. But next time we'll catch you later, dudes. Fucking words.